Hello everybody, how are we doing today? So today's tier list is going to be looking at the viability of Pokemon in doing a Gold and Silver, original Gold and Silver Nuzlocke run of these games. As you can see, there are a lot of Pokemon in the unobtainable tier, which we'll get into, but this is just a list with all of the pre-evolutions of the Pokemon that you can use. And the criteria for this list is that you can trade with another person, but if you can't, I'll make note of all the Pokemon that like trades matter for when they come up. So yeah, before we get started, I'm just gonna explain the unobtainable tier. All of these Pokemon are either available only in Kanto or by Stone Evolution, and the Stone Evolutions, except for one in these games, are really just not super reliable. The quantity of stones isn't really there. So yeah, for simplicity's sake, these are all the Pokemon right here that are not available in a standard Nuzlocke run. So yeah, you got like Houndour, Slugma, Sneasel, all only available in Kanto. And then you got like Exeggutor, Shellder, Oddish, Bellsprout, Growlithe, etc. that are only available through Stone Evolution. Oh, I should also include that Remoraid is a Johto available Pokemon, like it's available in the Johto region, but you don't get the Super Rod, which is required for it, until you get to Kanto, so it kind of defeats the purpose of that. But yeah, let's get started with Chikorita. So Chikorita goes in niche. It's a grass type, which in these games stinks. It gets bodied by the first, second, fourth, sixth, seventh, and eighth gym leaders. That's a lot of gyms for a starter to really not be useful for. It struggles in a lot of the Team Rocket fights because of their poison types. It has good stats and moves, so I'm not gonna say like if you want a grass type, Meganium is a great way to go, but that's really only if you want a grass type. Otherwise, it's really not useful, and it's not more useful than either of your other starter choices. If you're choosing a starter randomly with like a random number generator and you get Chikorita, you got the short end of the stick for sure. Okay. Totodile, hold on. Totodile and Feraligatr. Actually, no, I should talk about Cyndaquil first. It's supposed to be in order. So these Pokemon are super good. Typhlosion is excellent in these games. It does really well against the second gym, especially. Does good against the fourth gym, great against the sixth gym and the seventh gym. All three of the starters really kind of struggle with the last gym, but especially in the battles in between, Typhlosion is pretty excellent. It gets good fire type moves. It gets Fire Punch, which is all you really need. It gets Thunder Punch, which is great coverage for water types and flying types. It gets Smoke Screen, which can be super useful in Nuzlocks. Oh, I'm also assuming that you can use items in battle to heal and stuff, and that you can use evasion or accuracy moves. But yeah, it gets useful. It gets useful tools. It has good stats. It has a good move pool. Really can't go wrong with this thing. And there aren't really better fire types like here. Let me take a look. Yeah, there's really only one, well, three if you count legendaries, but one other fire type on here. This would start a trend of fire types not being available in Pokemon, but that's a whole nother topic. Anyway, great Pokemon. And then we'll put Totodile right in the middle of those two. So, water types are definitely better than grass types. Totodile has a good matchup against definitely Jasmine. Probably Whitney. Honestly, it does the best of the three, just because it has the good stats and doesn't get bodied by rollout. It just does pretty solid against most, if not all, of the gyms in these games. It has good defensive stats, like it has a high base defense, respectable base HP, stuff like that. it's not amazing because there are a lot of other water type options in these games, but it gets Ice Punch, you can teach it Surf, Bite. Those aren't physical attacks, but you can get it physical attacks. You can get it Earthquake towards the end of the game, which can be useful for the Elite Four. Um, it's a good Pokemon. It's not anything crazy, but definitely worth using in a Nuzlocke for sure. Okay. Furret. Furret. Where do I want to put Furret? I'm gonna put it in niche. I would say it's definitely not a bad thing to catch early on, just because you get it so early, and it is like one of the better normal types you get early game. But actually, even then, it's kind of outclassed. Honestly, I'm gonna move it down. Um, Rattata's kind of just a better version of it. The only thing that Raticate doesn't get that Furret does get is Surf, which I guess if you need Surf, bombs away. But it really kind of just it has decent stats and moves for when you get it, but it really kind of just gets outclassed by Rattata. I mean, again, if you can't get Rattata and you get this thing, you'll be fine until you can get a better normal type later on. But Rattata's just kind of better in every way. So yeah, it goes in outclassed, unfortunately. Speaking of Rattata, I'm gonna put it in niche because it too gets outclassed but not by anything that you can catch until later on in the game. Rattata definitely has use in the beginning parts of runs. Actually, I'm gonna put it. No, I'm gonna keep it in niche just because its stats aren't good enough for it to be good. It gets decent moves. It gets a decent, well-rounded base of moves. It gets like Hyper Fang pretty early, which can tear through some of the competition. Again, you catch it early. It can be very useful in the first few gyms, but after you get past the Sudowoodo blocking the way, you get access to a bunch of better normal types than it, so it kind of loses its use by that point, unless you get unlucky and can't find any of them, which really is pretty unlikely. But yeah, its stats just don't really hold up towards the latter part of the game. I'm going to put Hoothoot and Pidgey in Outclass. They are the definition of Outclassed. Spearow is right there. Spearow is better than both of them. The only thing that Hoothoot gets that Spearow doesn't get is Hypnosis, which can be useful. But again, the stats that Noctowl ends up having does like Hypnosis doesn't make up for the gap between it and Spearow. Uh, Spearow's just a better normal flying type than both of these. I talked extensively about how it's better than Pidgey and how you can get it like at the same time in Fire Red and Leaf Green. The same thing holds true in these games. You can get Spearow on the second route that you can come into, and it's just a better Pidgey. It's crazy how Pidgey is just kind of irrelevant in terms of viability. But yeah, they're definitely both outclassed and belong in the outclassed era. I'm going to put Fearow and Spearow themselves into good. Not amazing stats, but like very consistent flying type. You can teach it return and fly, and it's going to do a good, solid job throughout the majority of the game. Definitely useful against Bugsy for sure. Useful against Chuck. And can be useful in spots in the Elite Four. Has the stats, has a decent set of moves, but it's not amazing. It doesn't have the stats to be an amazing. Sorry, I'm sniffling. I got the seasonal allergies still. Hoping those go away soon, but you never know. Okay, Butterfree. It's just, it's garbage. You know what? I'm gonna add a row below. Garbage. I wouldn't say that any of the three above are garbage. Here's the difference between outclassed and garbage. You can make the three in outclassed work if you have to. It's hard. It's really hard to make Butterfree work in these games. So instead of having to face Brock, who doesn't have any rock-type moves in red, blue, and yellow, and using Butterfree for that, you have to face Falkner, who has flying-type moves and will rip a Butterfree apart. And then Bugsy, who Scyther's just going to beat down a Butterfree. And then Whitney, who has Rollout and will one-shot on the first hit of Rollout. Like, every single gym leader, this thing is just, it's going to be dead before it's useful. That's kind of how being a garbage Pokemon goes. It's really just not good. That can also probably be said. Ooh. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to just toss all the bugs in there. They're all really bad for kind of the same reasons, like Falkner destroys them, Bugsy destroys them, Whitney destroys them, and by the time Morty, they can't really touch, and by the time you get to Chuck, where they might be useful, no, like they're probably already dead. If you're that committed to it and you've made it there with them, then good for you. But you could be doing a lot better with different Pokemon. So total garbage. Like, it's really hard to make these things work. Again, the difference between outclassed and garbage is you can make outclassed work. It's really hard to make garbage Pokemon work in these games. Okay. Geodude. So, Geodude goes into the top tier here because there aren't a ton of water types, grass types, or, well, there are ice types, but again, there aren't a ton of its like major weaknesses in these games, except for the route leading up to Cianwood, but you probably just want to avoid using it there. But like other than that, Geodude and Golem is like, again, assuming you can get there. So this is a Pokemon where Golem is really good. It's better than Graveler, but Graveler is still great. Like, Graveler is still super useful and usable for the majority of these games. The stats are really good. You can get Earthquake. You can get decent rock coverage. Geodude is a joy to use in these games. You get it really early. You get it in the same route as you get Spearow. A great use against Faulkner, not Volkner, Faulkner. Bugsy, it can tank a lot of the hits from Whitney. It can dish out damage against Morty. Not great against Chuck. Great against Jasmine. Not great against Price. Not great against Claire, but super useful in the Elite Four. Like, Geodude is kind of a monster in these games. I'm not gonna lie. It's super good. Okay, Zubat, I'm gonna put in good. These tiers aren't in order, by the way. I decided not to do them for this because the tier you fall into, there's not going to be that much ordering throughout the tier anyway. They're kind of all, like, if you're in this tier, you're kind of, like, on a pretty similar level, in my opinion, for these games. Anyway, Zubat into Crobat. You know, Crobat, it does not hit its stride in these generations for sure. It doesn't get stab, poison type move, except for Poison Sting. It can't learn Sludge Bomb, which stinks. You know, you can teach it Fly, and it's gonna go first, but and you can teach it Confuse Ray. That's really all it kind of has going for it. But with that said, its attack is good. It has great defensive typing. It's great against, let's see, definitely Bugsy it has use. Chuck for sure. Morty it has its use. Even Claire and the Elite Four definitely can put in some work. But not amazing. Not anything to write home about, really. Okay, Poliwag. So I guess I should have made it so that this was split, but at the end of the day, they're kind of both going to end up in the same tier anyway, so I'll just talk about them both. I'm going to put Poliwag in good. You get it pretty early. You can get it at night in like one of the earliest routes in the game. if you get it into Poliwrath, actually you can't get it into Poliwrath because it's a stone evolution, so it's actually more reliable to get it into Politoed. So I'll explain how you kind of get it into Politoed. It's a misconception that a lot of the trade evolutions are not possible until the after game that require held items, like the King's Rock or the Metal Coat. This is not true. You get the Thief TM. You can get it as soon as you beat the 4th gym. And potentially even earlier with some luck, but you can get Thief, teach it to like a not super useful Pokemon, and you can find the King's Rock on Poliwags or on Slowbros and Slowpokes, you can find Metal Coats on Magnemites in the wild and use Thief on them until you find the item you're looking for, and then it's just a trade away from being a good Pokemon. Anyway, yeah, so Politoed is a decent special attacker. It gets Surf, you can get it Ice Punch, and it can deal out a surprising amount of damage. Like it's kind of a better special attack. It's just a better special attacker than for Alligator, getting a few of the same important moves like Ice Punch and Surf, like I said. But yeah, Politoed is definitely good. Again, stats aren't high enough to put it into the amazing tier, but get it pretty early. Good Pokemon, for sure. Okay. Garbage. Togetic is like a tick. You just want to get it off your team. Like, go away. Bad stats. Okay moves. If this was Gen 1, it might go into Outclassed, but you don't really get a lot of the TMs that have the strength that you get in Gen 1. It's really just not useful. It's definitely Outclassed. It's one of the worst normal flying types ever. If this could evolve into Togekiss, we'd be having a whole different conversation, but no, just really not great. Okay. I'm going to put Sandshrew in niche. Sandshrew, or Sandslash rather, really, it's just really not great. It gets Earthquake later on in the game, which can be strong, but it's outclassed by the Geodude line. You get it early enough. You can definitely make it work. It has good stats. You can get it good moves, like it can get Strength, it can get Slash, Earthquake, like I said, but just not quite as useful without that Rock Stab. Like, it's not as useful against Bugsy. It's not super useful against Morty without any type of Ground-type stab. Same thing with Jasmine. Yeah, it's not. It is a decent Pokemon, so it can't go into like one of the bad tiers, but it's not anything great. Ekans, definitely outclassed. There are better poison types. There's a particular better poison type or two that I can think of. Yeah, Ekans, just stats. You can get it Sludge Bomb later on in the game. Other than that, not great moves, not really anything to write home about. Yeah, just a very bleh Pokemon that you can get early in the game. Kind of the same thing with Venonat. There are better bug types and better poison types. There are better users of Psybeam. There are better users of the powder moves. Even like Weepin' Bell or Gloom would be better than this thing. So it definitely is belonging in Outclassed. It's not entirely useless. Like, you can make it work, but again, it doesn't have the right moves to go with its stat spread, and it just doesn't muster up. Dunsparce, shout out to the bus. If anybody gets that reference, drop a comment. But Yeah, the bus I'm gonna put into niche. So it's better than people think it is. It gets good moves. It has a wide move pool. You can get it pretty early. It's not a fun Pokemon to encounter. You're not really likely to get it, but if you do get it, it's like Rattata. It's serviceable through that beginning part of the game. It has a niche in that, but it gets outclassed again once you get past that Sudowoodo. They're just better normal types. So, yeah, decent move pool, meh stats, but it has a niche. Okay, Flaffy or Ampharos, Mareep, whatever you want to call it. Great, excellent Pokemon. Electric types are super good. If you can get it before Falkner, I don't remember if you can. It's useful in that fight. Useful against Bugsy, useful against Whitney, useful against Chuck for sure. Useful against Price. Can be useful against Claire too, and definitely good in the Elite Four. It's kind of just like the electric type version of Typhlosion, except a little bit slower, with a little bit better special attack. It gets Thunder Punch and Fire Punch, two of the most important moves in these games. Like, it can dish out a lot of damage with those moves, and it can kind of run through a lot of the less important battles just with those moves alone. It has decent bulk, not fast, but definitely has good stats and a good set of moves to really run through the game for sure. Okay. I am gonna put Wooper. I'm gonna put it at the top of good. I'll go with my word. I'm not gonna order the tiers, but Quagsire is on the cusp of being great, of being amazing. If you could get it Earthquake earlier than you can, then it would be, but you can't. But being a water ground type in a game that doesn't have that many grass types is super, super good. It has decent stats. It has good bulk. Has good enough physical attack to make some moves work. You can get it Sludge Bomb to deal with the grass types later on. You can teach it Surf, Ice Beam, Earthquake, like I said. Definitely one of the best ground types in the game. Water Ground is a super good type. Just it doesn't get Earthquake early enough for it to be amazing. Like, it doesn't have the stats to put it into amazing. Like, it's just not quite there. Gastly. Okay, so this is a trade evolution. It goes into niche, honestly, if you can't get it to Gengar. But if you can get it to Gengar, oh, it's so good. Good defensive typing. Underrated fact about ghost types in these games: a lot of things have like a lot of normal type moves. And they can just wall those out. Can't get really touched by fighting types either, so it's super useful against the Morty fight for sure. Chuck for sure. Not Jasmine, actually. Fights later on in the game, definitely, because you can get it the elemental punches, which are super important to these games, especially for Pokemon like Gastly and another Pokemon coming up. But again, this is based on if you can evolve it. If you can evolve it into a Gengar, you can get those elemental punches. If you get it into a Haunter, I don't think you can. I'm gonna check that, honestly. I don't want to be wrong about this, so hold on. Haunter. But yeah, if Haunter has good stats, but yeah, it can't get the elemental punches, so it just doesn't really cut it like Gengar does. Gengar is excellent though. You can deal a lot of special damage to Pokemon that are gonna get hurt by it. Unknown, garbage. Gets hidden power, has 70 for every one of its base stats. I mean, you can only have one move on it. Like, please, for the love of God, save your Runes of Alph encounter for a Pokemon that is better than this piece of filth. I feel like I haven't been mentioning the Nuzlocke stuff enough, so bulk is important, but being able to heal in battle and kind of gauging how much damage your opponent's going to do makes bulk a little bit less important. Again, this is not hardcore Nuzlocke rankings. This is just normal Nuzlocke rankings. So hardcore Nuzlocke, maybe I'll look into doing lists on it in the future, but I just don't have enough experience with those types of runs to make a list on it. But yeah, I just thought I should mention bulk is more important than a normal playthrough, but it's not as important as it could be. My cat is meowing at the door. I was just making sure he's alright. Okay. Onix. Ooh, this is a tricky spot. So Onix without evolution, as you know, garbage. But Onix with evolution and with that Iron Tail TM, I'm gonna put it in good. You can get it Earthquake later on. You can evolve it into Steelix before you would even see a Steelix in the Jasmine fight. Its defense is so high. You can physically tank any hit in the game, honestly. Like, it's crazy. It's not great dealing with special defensive or offensive Pokemon. It's not. But again, assuming you can evolve it, it's a great Pokemon. You can get it Iron Tail and Earthquake. You can get it Curse. It's going to do a lot of damage. It's also, if you get an Onix, if you get the Onix through the Bellsprout trade, it can be super useful against Falkner if you don't really have other options, or Bugsy. Like, this thing has use early game. The only gym battle where it's not really useful, it's even useful against Morty. This is a good Pokemon. Again, doesn't get Earthquake early enough for it to be an amazing, but still, great Pokemon in these games. Lapras. So Lapras is a tricky one, but I'm gonna put it in good. So Lapras you can only get on Friday after getting Surf in Union Cave, but it's a static encounter, which helps. And Water Ice is a good offensive type in these games, especially for when you get it. Useful against Jasmine Steelix, useful against Claire for sure, useful against the Elite Four. Great bulk, good enough special attack to make it work. Yeah, definitely Lapras I highly recommend. A Surf from a Lapras is going to do enough damage to where you can make it work. But Pokemon you can't really make work, this thing. So you get it pretty early. And it gets powder moves and is fast. Other than that, no positives. It's a grass type, which again stink in these games. I'm trying to think of anything to say other than it's just bad. Like, it doesn't get good grass moves, doesn't get good flying moves. I don't think it can learn fly. Again, it's just fast. Like, if you're fast and do no damage, it doesn't matter if you're fast. Yeah. Paris. I would say outclassed. It has a high enough physical attack stat to where you can probably make it work if you have to. It also gets Spore, which is good. But other than that, it's a grass type. And you know what? No, it's garbage. It's a grass type. It gets bodied by so many of the important battles, like Jasmine, Whitney, Bugsy, Price, Claire. No, just its typing really doesn't do it any favors. Good cut user. Can get Spore, but I really don't see it being that useful. Garbage tier is the biggest tier now. That's not good. Okay, so Magikarp is an interesting case. But I would say it goes in niche. I have a worse opinion of Gyarados than almost any other person that I know that plays these games. Especially in Gen 2 and Gen 3, which are my most played generations, despite Gen 4 being my favorite. I just didn't have as easy access to emulators for it back in the day. Anyway, Gyarados, when you get the shiny in the late game, is good. Like, it gets Thrash, you can get its Strength, it can deal good physical damage. while being able to soak up special hits pretty well. But getting Magikarp early on, it's a hassle to keep it alive. The move pool just isn't there based on the stats. There are better water types and there are better flying types. It doesn't. It's, again, the red Gyarados is pretty good. Any other Gyarados just kind of isn't worth your time. Yeah, I would say it definitely gets outclassed. This is not Gyarados' finest hour. This is probably actually its worst generation because it doesn't even have Intimidate, but yeah. Just, it has great stats, so it can't go outclassed, but it's not great. The definition of outclassed, Goldeen. You get it somewhat early, I think. It has decent physical attack, not great special attack. It's like a much worse version of Feraligatr, basically, that can get supersonic. And maybe Megahorn, I don't know. I think it might have been Heracross exclusive in these games. Actually, let me check. Goldeen. There's a reason it flops around instead of Magikarp in the Smash Bros. Games. I'll just say that. Gen 2 gets Horn Drill, not Megahorn. Maybe this thing gets Megahorn? No, it gets Peck though. That's cool. Fun facts: Waterfall. Oh wait, yeah, Waterfall was a move in Gen 1. A little bit of a tangent, but I'll show you guys. Yeah, Waterfall. Didn't know that until much later on in my Pokemon life than I am happy to admit. But anyway, go back to this. Yeah, just a watered down, no pun intended, version of a Feraligatr. Not a good water type, but still a water type with okay stats. Okay, Slowbro. Does Slowbro get the punches? I'm sorry, I'm a little ill-prepared for this Pokemon. I'll look into Slowking, I guess, as well. Because Slowking is not no, you know what? It honestly is kind of easier to get than Slowbro, because it just requires the King's Rock. No, not Gen 3. I'll base my evaluation off of Slowking, who can learn Ice Punch. Okay. Yeah, so this thing is definitely useful. Okay, I don't know why I didn't think it could learn Ice Punch, honestly. I'm honestly tempted to put, you know what? Yeah, I'll put it in Amazing. So, the reason I do that is Water Psychic is a good defensive type. It has a lot of use throughout the game. It has such good stats and good moves to take advantage of, and you can catch it and evolve it pretty early. You can get the King's Rock on it, do the trade. Without trade, it's still probably in good. You just evolve it a little bit later, but yeah. Surf is gonna hit like a truck from this thing. Ice Punch is good. You can get Psychic and Confusion, which are gonna deal a lot of damage. You can get it Curse to beef up its defenses. It's not going first, but it doesn't really matter. It's super useful against, let's see, Morty, I would say for sure. It can eat up Shadow Balls from Gengar like nobody's business. Chuck, Jasmine, and definitely probably Claire, and yeah, you know what, Piloswine of Prices too. Amazing Pokemon, great stats, good moves. Get it early, pretty good, pretty great. The definition of outclassed: better Psychic types all over the place. Drowzee is really only good for the Machop trade. Other than that, it's like it's got better special defense than any other Psychic type, I believe, but that's about it. It really can't dish it out. Gets decent Psychic stab like the rest of them do, but again, just not hitting hard enough to be anything but there. And look at what it's outclassed by. Probably one of the best, if not the best, Pokemon lines in these games. Even Kadabra would be in the top tier. No doubt in my mind. You can slap this thing on slap this thing with I don't know how to speak English. Psychic, Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, and Ice Punch, and you're good to go. This thing is gonna wreck house on the rest of these games. It'll go first and it'll one-shot pretty much everything. It is so unbelievably good. I don't get how this Pokemon is as good as it is. It's unbelievable. I don't even have to say that much about it. Like, it's so good. The only thing that would make it better is getting it earlier, but even still, once you get it, you're mowing down the rest of the game. To be fair, for Nuzlocke purposes, it only has teleport, which makes it a little bit harder to catch, but I'm trying to not incorporate catch difficulty as much, just because it's kind of random what you're going to catch and how you're going to catch it. And I try to stay objective with these, is to take randomness and the random factor away, which I could see why you would want to go in a different direction with that pick. But I try to leave randomness out of it, just for simplicity's sake, just because, like, it's more of like okay, if you get this Pokemon, how is it going to do for you, rather than like what are your odds of getting this Pokemon, and then how will it work? Like, if you were to have a full team of 6 in a Nuzlocke and then look at this tier list, that's kind of what I'm going for. I just thought I would explain that. That's a good Pokemon to explain it for. Okay, Pineco. I'll put it in niche. You can get Forretress, which is a Steel type, which is always a good thing. I don't think it gets Spikes until Crystal, but it has a good defense stat, a decent attack stat. It has a great defensive typing. It kind of walls out every single battle in the game. You just need to chip it down with like Strength or something, or like Hidden Power, and you're good to go. With that being said, there are better Bug types and there are better Steel types, so not the best, but certainly fills a role. This thing does not fill a role. Garbage. Doesn't evolve into Yanmega. Doesn't have any moves that it can really take advantage of. It's fast, and that's literally it. Garbage. Totally terrible. Gets one-shot by like half the Pokemon that are in these games, and that's saying something. Because Gold and Silver are, well, I'll talk about that at some other point. But Gold and Silver are ... I'll leave you with a mic drop like Red on my opinion of these games. Anyway, Sunflora from Sunkern. So I'm gonna put it in niche, with the caveat being that if you catch this thing, evolve it immediately. Do not keep it as a Sunkern. It's not worth it. Petal Dance is really all you're gonna use with this thing. You can get the Sunstone reliably from winning the bug catching contest, which, if you're playing by sturdy Nuzlocke rules, which I don't think you should be for the bug catching contest, because it's kind of outside of the realm of the Nuzlocke, and you can just release the Pokemon that you catch from it if you want to. But you get the Sunstone, which is used to evolve it pretty reliably. I guess I can talk about Blossom in the same vein. You can Sunstone it. Sunflora is a little bit slower with a little bit better special attack than Blossom. Both kind of just rely on Petal Dance to do any damage, but again, grass types just aren't great in these games. Doesn't have any useful fights except for like Poliwrath and Piloswine. Yeah, just good special attack, but that's really it. I think it gets overhated because Sunkern is so garbage. But Sunflora is okay. Sudowoodo. I think Sudowoodo is super underrated. I'm gonna put it in good. just because it gets outclassed by Geodude, but Sudowoodo can wreck some shit with Rock Slide. It has good physical defense. You get it not too late into the game. Like, it has a lot of useful fights in it, like Price, Morty, a lot of the Elite Four fights. Not Bruno for sure, but Lance. This thing kind of messes with Lance, gets in Lance's head. But Sudowoodo's good. It has good base stats. It gets Rock Slide, which is really all it needs. You can get its strength. Definitely a solid Pokemon. Scyther. Okay, so Scyther without Scizor and Scyther with Scizor are pretty close, but Scizor has better typing. I'm gonna put it in good, because it doesn't get any great bug stab at all. But you can get it Wing Attack, you can get it Metal Claw. Again, you can evolve it with a Metal Coat through trade, which you can get off of Magnemites. Sorry, my throat's getting a little dry. But yeah, Scyther and Scizor are definitely good. They have great stats, obviously. Again, you don't have the bug type moves, but you have other moves that you can take advantage of, and they're available pretty early. Pinsir is... No, it's not bad enough to go in Outclass. It goes in Niche. Better bug types, like Scyther and the other Pokemon that you're about to see. Doesn't get any bug type stabs still. It gets strength, and that's kind of it. Has good stats. You can definitely make it work, but there are just better bug types out there. Like Heracross. So Heracross is also going to go in good because, yes, you can get it Mega Horn, but it gets it pretty late. You can't get it any reliable fighting type stab, but this thing's stats are so good that it just kind of has to go in good. Can eat up special hits like a sponge. Can deal out a lot of damage with physical attacks. Is definitely useful for a lot of the fights in the game. Gets Earthquake by TM, which is big. Yeah, nothing bad to say about Heracross. It doesn't get great stab until the next generation in Brick Break, so not as good as it will be later on in the later games, but still good. Koffing, I'm gonna put into Niche. Good defenses, decent defensive typing for these games. Not a whole lot of useful fights, but it's definitely probably the best pure poison type in the game. Not the best poison type, but has good physical bulk, decent physical attack. You can get it Sludge Bomb later on in the game. You can get it Smoke Screen. You can get it, let's see, what else is there? And you can get it Explosion. I guess the same thing goes for Pinsir if you really need it in a pinch. Because knowing when to sacrifice a Pokemon is useful in Nuzlocke. Yeah. It's okay. Nothing to write home about. Decent stats. Get it in Ekrutique at the Burn Tower, but just nothing too great. Magnemite is a tricky case. It goes in Niche despite having fantastic stats and a great typing. Its best electric type move is Thunder Shock. It's hard to work with that. But it has the stats and the typing to be really good. It just doesn't have the moves yet. You can't really get it Thunderbolt until Crystal later on in the game, in the after game, in the post game. Honestly, same goes for Voltorb. Actually, Voltorb I'm going to put in Outclassed. Voltorb is really only useful for like fast explosions and thunder, I guess. But thunder's not reliable. Again, neither of them are great. They're both outclassed for sure by Ampharos, who gets Thunder Punch. And has comparable special attack, if not better special attack, in the case of Electrode. But yeah. Decent enough, but just not, like, you can make them work, but they're not going to work great. Apom, garbage. Bad stats except for speed. Okay moves, but so outclassed by so many different normal types in these games. It's really just not worth your time. If this were Gen 4 and it could evolve, it would be a different conversation. But no, Ambipom is not available. So Apom, garbage. Snubbull. I'm gonna put it in good. Not fast, but hits like a truck with strength. Shadow Ball it can get, which is good. Sludge Bomb it can get, which is good. Again, I'm not basing this on your odds of catching it. I'm basing this on, if you catch it, how useful is it going to be? And I think Snubbull, it hits like a truck. It doesn't have great speed, but it definitely has a use in these games for sure. One of the better normal types in the game. Not useful against Chuck or Jasmine, but definitely useful for like the rest of the game, honestly. Is not the best normal type, but is one of the best normal types in these games. Stantler, outclassed. Stantler gets Hypnosis, it gets some cool moves. It has decent attack with really no other good stats. Again, it gets strength, I guess. I don't even know if it gets strength, actually. Hold on. Stantler. I feel like it would. Oh, come on. Let's see here. Yeah, doesn't learn strength, and only learns flash. Yeah, but get some funky moves available somewhat early, but you can get Snubbull and other normal types that I'll mention later at the same time. So, like, again, it's really just not terrific. It doesn't really have anything that has it stand out, but it can be used if that's what you catch. Like, you can make it work. It gets Stomp as normal type stab, which can work. It's just outclassed for sure. Mankey, good. It kind of falls into the same category, but with a different, not as good stat spread as Heracross. Only available in gold. It's fast, it's got good physical attack, but it doesn't get the fighting stab other than like Dynamic Punch, which again is not a reliable move to make it really work. I guess Low Kick is okay, but fighting types just aren't at their best yet in this generation for sure. And Mankey is a reflection of that. Good stats, not terrible availability, but just not a good move pool. And it can be useful in a lot of the fights, but it's just like it's not good enough to be an amazing. I'm honestly, I don't want to put it in niche. I don't think it's bad enough to be in niche. I don't know. I'll leave it in good, but it's on the border. Meowth, definitely outclassed. There are so many. Again, it's kind of just like Stantler, but even a little bit worse, honestly. It's faster with worse attack. Well, no, I guess it would be around the same. Just gets outclassed by other normal types that are available around, if not at the same time. Doesn't have great moves, doesn't have great stats, decent availability. You can make it work, but definitely not great. Psyduck. I would say niche, almost in good, but it doesn't have quite good enough stats to being good. You get it a decent way into the game. You can get it Ice Punch, Surf, and Confusion, which, again, it's kind of just a watered-down version, again, no pun intended, of Slowking, which is an excellent Pokemon in these games. Golduck can be used, like, you can make it work for sure, but stats just aren't quite up to snuff. Machop is definitely the best fighting types in these games. good stats if you can get it to a Machamp, for sure. Even still, decent stats at Machoke. Let's see, what is I know it gets decent fighting stab, Machop. You can get it before the Whitney fight, which is super important to its viability because it can kind of mess that fight up. Especially, yeah. So, Vital Throw is a good move. Cross Chop is a good move. Oh, you know what? Actually, Mankey gets Cross Chop. And you know what? Yeah, Mankey is not on the borderline of good because it gets Cross Chop. But yeah, Vital Throw and Cross Chop are decent power. Not great moves because of their PP and their holdbacks. Vital Throw, you go second. Cross Chop is only 5 PP. Like, it's just not quite there to be an amazing, but it's good. It's definitely usable. It's better than Mankey because you can use it for the Whitney fight. But yeah, Machop, you have to get it through trade, I mean, yeah, you have to get it through trade, but again, I'm not really talking about, like, how you catch it. I'm talking about if you run into it, if it's on your team, how useful it's going to be. But yeah, Machop is definitely good, Machamp is good, Machoke is good, just not great. Girafarig, outclassed. There are better Psychic types, and there are better normal types right when you get it. It's only saving grace, really. Actually, I'm going to put it in niche because it gets Crunch, which can be super useful as a Dark-type move. And it has the stats where it can take advantage of it, but it gets Psybeam and Strength as its stab. Again, just definitely better Psychic types and better normal types out there. It has a niche because of Crunch, but that's about it. Decent stats. Decent availability, not anything crazy. Magmar, okay, so Magmar, despite being outclassed by Typhlosion, is basically just like a later on in the game, a little bit worse version of Typhlosion that you can get if you didn't choose Cyndaquil as your starter. Gets Thunder Punch, gets Fire Punch, is really good in the Jasmine fight, in the Price fight, and in fights in the Elite Four and later on. Good special attack stat. You can get it Feint Attack, maybe. No, actually, I think that's in later games. You can get it the 2 punches, which again are super important. But yeah, overall pretty good. Not great, like pretty decent availability. Good stats. Not super amazing though. Like, it's not available early enough. Like, if it could be used against Bugsy and was maybe a little bit faster, then it would probably be an amazing, but it's just not quite there. But amazing, we have Tauros. Tauros is, if you run into it, you are in great luck because it is super fast. It hits like a truck. It has good moves. You can teach it Shadow Ball. It's basically just a fast version of Granbull, which is super, super good. You can get it Earthquake too. I mean, this thing wreaks havoc on a lot of the fights. The only fight it's not really useful for is Morty and maybe Jasmine, depending on what its moves look like. But honestly, it's so good throughout the entirety of the game and into the Elite Four. You really can't go wrong if you have a Tauros on your team. I'm going to say Miltank goes in good as well. It's basically Tauros, but with physical defense that's high instead of physical attack. Its physical attack is still usable, but Miltank is super fast. It's a very good, bulky Pokemon. Can eat a lot of hits. Good moves. You can get it Rollout, Strength, Earthquake, Shadow Ball. Definitely useful. Fast, again. Good defense. Again, it's just like a more defensive version of Tauros. You get it in the same spot. You can definitely make it work, but it's just not quite as good as Tauros because attack is still more important than defense. Smeargle, garbage. You get Sketch once every 10 levels. This thing hits like a paintbrush would, unless it poked you in the eye. Yeah, like, this thing is garbage. It's really situational. You might not even be able to get it. When can you get Smeargle? Can you even get it in the main story? Smeargle. I have so many Cerebi tabs open. That's oh, whoopsie. Sorry, I got distracted there. Runes of Alph. Okay, so you can't get it in the main story. But even still, just really not useful. Super situational with how you teach it its moves, and not worth your time. Farfetch'd. Another garbage Pokemon. It doesn't have good stats by any means. It doesn't have the auto crit slash that it had a generation prior. Much better normal types for sure on that same route. It's on the same route as Tauros and Miltank and Snubbull. Much better flying types with Zubat and Fearow. Just, it's far-fetched. It's literally a joke. Okay. Natu is the definition of outclassed. Better psychic types for sure. Better flying types for sure. Not good availability. Not available until you get Surf and not at a high level. It doesn't get good psychic type attacks. It doesn't have good physical attack to take advantage of Fly. It's borderline garbage, but its stats are good enough to where you can make it work if you must. Xatu is a decent Pokemon. It's not, again, it'll be better in later generations, but Xatu and Natu, just not great. Tentacool. I'm going to put it in good. Again, these tiers are not ordered, so bear with me. Tentacool hits decently enough. It has good defensive typing. Poison type is pretty useful in these games for defenses. You can get it Surf, which will do the damage that you want it to do. Its availability isn't great. You don't get it until when you're going to Cianwood. It's useful against the Steelix, Piloswine, useful in the Elite Four. Actually, I'm going to put it down to niche. It's just not quite as good as the other water types now that I think about it. It doesn't get Ice Punch. It doesn't really get any other great utility moves. It has good stats. It has very good stats. It has good bulk. It has good speed. Just doesn't quite hit hard enough with anything for it to be in the good tier, honestly. But it's definitely not terrible. Krabby kind of is just a better version of Goldeen, but a worse version of Feraligatr. It has good physical attack and physical defense, but this is a Pokemon where you will get bodied by a special attack, honestly. Again, it just doesn't get the moves. Honestly, hold on. Shout out to Snippy Lips. Again, same reference as the boss. But yeah. Oh, and shout out to Dinkelberg. Same reference as the other two. Anyway, what was I gonna say? So Kingler, it can hit for decent damage for sure, but it definitely just gets outclassed by Feraligatr and by other water types. It's not available early enough for it to be used in any of the early battles where Kingler would like wreak havoc, but yeah, it just doesn't do the damage with the special attacks, which is kind of what water types are important for. I don't even want to talk about Shuckle. It's not good. Like, it just doesn't do enough damage. Like, you will get whittled down. It's just not worth it. Like, you can use, like, Wrap or Bind or whatever and chip the opponent down, or, like, Sandstorm, but... And you can heal off, but, again, it's just not worth your sanity. Better rock types, better bug types, no attack stat whatsoever, and, yeah, garbage. Just really not worth it. Corsola. Oh, jeez. I'm gonna put it in out. I'm gonna put it in... Sorry, I don't mean to moan. Garbage. because it isn't really useful for any battles. It has no good stats pretty much whatsoever. It has meh bulk and just bad attack stats. It doesn't really get good moves. It's not available until late. Like, there's really just no reason to use this thing. There is a reason to use Chimecho, and Lanturn. Good bulk, good typing. Available somewhat late, but it's made up for with its typing. Water Electric is super good and super unique. It can be used in a lot of the later fights like Jasmine, Price, Claire, Lance. It can soak up hits. It doesn't deal out a ton of damage in return, but with Surf in combination, it does enough. But it's just not quite as good as the other water types that are available, like Lapras or Slowbro or even Psyduck and Tentacool, because it doesn't get Ice Punch, but or Politoed as well, and Wooper. I forgot about those two. Excuse me. Even Totodile. Jeez, I'm on a roll right now. I'm sorry. I'm a little tired. Long day at work, but yeah. So Lanturn. Decent stats, good bulk, good typing, decent moves. Not bad overall. Not quite great yet. Seel outclassed. So doesn't really hit for anything on the special side. Not available until super late. Decent moves. You can get it Surf, obviously. Ice Beam. I don't think it even learns it by level up here. Hold on. I must have missed it. Seel, here we go. Yeah, Ice Beam at level 37, which is good, I will admit, but again, better ice types, better water types, doesn't hit hard enough, can take some special damage for sure, but it's really just kind of, you can make it work, but it's not worth using over a lot of the other Pokemon. Lickitung, when do you even get Lickitung in these games? Lickitung will be a no higher than Outclassed. I just want to see when you get it, because it could be garbage. Wait, that's Gen 6? Or, yeah, that's Gen 6. Route 44, so super late. Okay, garbage. Not good stats. Not really good moves. Outclassed by, like, literally almost every other normal type in these games. You can teach it Surf, I think. Yeah, you can teach it Surf, but that's really kind of it. Lickitung's stats are bad. Its moves are really bad. Its typing is, again, it leaves it outclassed. It's just not worth your time. Tangela, niche. No, outclassed. It doesn't have the moves to compete with Sunflora or Blossom or Meganium. It has decent stats, but not better stats than either of those Pokemon. Its availability is pretty late. Grass types, again, just aren't good. They got such a that's one of the worst typing to generation matchups there has ever been. Fighting in Gen 1, Poison in Gen 1, Bug in Gen 1 are really the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head that are that much worse. Fire in Gen 4, but for different reasons. But yeah, Tangela, is just not good. Its stats will make it better later on in later games, but again, it just doesn't get a good spread of moves to take advantage of them, so no, just outclassed for sure. Okay, Espeon is gonna go into good. So Espeon is really just kind of outclassed by Abra and Slowking. But it hits like a truck. You can teach it Psychic and Bite. It will hit hard. It will be fast. It is definitely super useful. It's just not quite good enough to be an amazing. The Eevee is not available until after the third gym, but I would say get it up to being a Espeon by just kind of walking around. I know it sucks, but friendship evolutions are something that you want to get immediately. And Espeon is no exception. You want to get that before the Morty fight, so that it can hit those Gengars and Haunters and Gastlys or whatever he has with good damage. Definitely useful against Chuck. Really, the rest of the fights kind of equally. The fights in between useful. Great stats though. Not good enough moves to put it into amazing. But definitely really good. Marill, garbage, terrible stats, horribly outclassed by every other water type in the game. Super rare, which I know doesn't really matter, but I just don't like Marill at all in these games. Doesn't have huge power, doesn't have literally anything going for it. It has a decent HP stat, that's it. So bad. Not worth using over any other water type at all. You really can't make it work. Like, it's so weak. Umbreon is going to go into good. If it had better attacks or a better attacking stat, it would probably be an amazing, because it is so bulky. It's the only dark type that you can really get before Kanto, which is so stupid. But Umbreon, again, get it there immediately. You can teach it Feint Attack. It can do a lot of good damage against Morty. It's not really useful against Chuck, but it is useful for the rest of the game. It can soak up hits like a sponge. Doesn't really deal back out the damage, but the thing is with Umbreon is that it doesn't really need to as much for it to work. Umbreon is just that bulky. Like, it will win battles for sure, especially if you can heal mid-battle. Okay. Horsey, which is Kingdra, because you can get the Dragon Scale, right when you can get Horsey, is going to go into good. Kingdra's stats are super good. You can teach it Dragon Breath when you get it from Claire. Again, if it was available earlier, it would probably be an amazing, but it's available as a Kingdra pretty late, just because you can't really reliably get a Dragon Scale until pretty late, or a Dragon-type stab move until pretty late either. But it gets Smokescreen, Surf hits like a truck, Dragon Breath hits for good damage against a lot of Pokemon. Very good, well-rounded stats. Kingdra is one of my favorite Pokemon. It's awesome. It's super good, and I think its stats reflect that. Again, if you can't trade for it, actually, it probably goes down to niche, because it doesn't have the dragon type. I forgot to mention its typing. That's its best feature. Only weak to other dragon types, which means it's really only weak to Outrage against Lance. But yeah, Seadra doesn't have the secondary dragon typing, doesn't have as good as stats, so it goes down to the niche because it can still hit with a good Surf, and it can still learn Smokescreen, which are both useful, but yeah, definitely not as good as it would be if it was a Kingdra, for sure. How many Pokemon do we have left? Not too many. Okay, Gligar is outclassed. It's available super late. You can get it Earthquake, which is okay. It has a good defense stat. It has a mediocre attack stat. Better ground types for sure. Better flying types for sure. Super late in the game, but you can make it work if it's a desperation encounter for sure. Delibird, garbage, terrible typing, better ice types, better flying types. It gets Ice Punch, which it can't take advantage of because it has terrible attacking stats. Definitely better Pokemon of its type. Available super late. What a shame. It's such a good design, but it's so bad. Swinub and Piloswine are outclassed for sure, but you can make them work. It has good attack and defense. You can't really take advantage of its ice typing, and there are better ice types anyway. Again, better ground types, not available until super late. It gets Earthquake later on, which can be good. It can be useful for the later fights in the game. But yeah, it's just not great. It's not available early enough to really have a huge impact. Teddiursa, I'm gonna put into good. So it's not available until super late, but if you're out of normal types and you run into a Teddiursa and you can get it, it's going to do a good amount of work for the end of the game. It has super high attack stat. You can teach it Strength and Shadow Ball. It's gonna wreck shop against a lot of later Pokemon in the game just because it will hit like a truck. Like, it would be amazing if you could get it earlier and it was a little bit faster, but yeah, it definitely has a good enough stats and move pool for it to be in good. Unfortunately, not available in Silver, but you guys have. Well, Skarmory's not the next Pokemon. I'll make it next. Skarmory, which is also going to go in good. Again, late availability, but Steel typing at this point in the game, when you only have really like dragons that can really threaten you for the rest of the game, is super, super good. Super high base defense. You can get it Steel Wing. You can get it Fly. It has decent enough attack where you can do a good portion of damage. It's really, like, as long as you avoid fire types and electric types, it's going to be able to take at least 2 probably hits from almost anything in the game. Yeah, super late in the end game. Again, it just needs to be available earlier and have a little bit better attack to be an amazing Pokemon. Anyway, back to these last few. Fanfy is niche. Good stats for sure. It's not available early like it is in Crystal. It's available late. Better ground types out there for sure, but you can get it Earthquake. Let's see. You can get it Rollout and Defense Curl, which can be useful. It can be useful for the end game fights, like with Lance, but just not good enough to be anywhere but what it is. Good stats though, for sure. Okay. Mantine. Yeah, Mantine goes into Outclassed, so Mantine has a decent special attack stat, a good special defense stat. Is Mantine even available without the Super Rod? It has to be, right? Okay, it's only available in Gold. Okay, Surfing. Yeah, so Mantine is outclassed by other flying types and water types because of its availability and the fact that it doesn't get any flying type moves, but actually, I'm going to put it in niche. It has good enough stats to go in niche. You can teach it Surf and it will do enough damage, but again, there are much better water types and flying types. It has super good special defense, so if you want a special defender, it does fill that role pretty well, but other than that, there are just a lot better options that are available a lot earlier that have better stats and moves. Tyrogue is just an unfortunate scene, man. It's not available until after you get Waterfall, which is at a point where its use isn't really, like, there are like 3 Pokemon left in the entire game, like the Umbreon and Houndoom of Karen, and maybe one of Bruno's Pokemon that is useful against at that point. Like, Pokemon that are available after you get Waterfall are just not, like, they're not really doing you enough favors to be useful. You get it at a super low level, so you have to grind it up a lot for it to be useful for the Elite Four, and even still, it's not really useful against many of the Pokemon when you get there. So, It's an unfortunate scene, because all three of its evolutions have super good stats, but just doesn't cut it. Dodrio, outclassed because of its availability. It's not available until after you get Waterfall, which goes for almost the rest of these, but not quite the rest of these Pokemon. So yeah, Dodrio's stats are excellent. Its moves are excellent. It's basically just a better version of Fearow, but it's not available until so late that it's not really useful for any of the fights at that point in the game. So it's super outclassed, but it doesn't have bad enough stats, and it doesn't require enough grinding to go into garbage. Ponyta, just another outclassed Pokemon, man. Ponyta has decent physical attack, which it can't really take advantage of. It has good physical attack and good speed. It has meh special attack. It doesn't really have great moves for it to take advantage of. It has good enough stats for it not to be in garbage, like you can make it work, but again, just a lot better fire types earlier on in the game. Smoochum, which is Jinx, is going to go into good. For sort of the same reasons as Teddiursa and Skarmory, you can get it in the Ice Path as a Jinx, and it can wreak havoc on Lance and Claire and a couple of Bruno's Pokemon. It definitely does a lot of damage. Ice Punch is a super powerful attack on it. You can get it Psychic. It's not available early enough, and without the good enough move pool for it to be an amazing. But it can definitely do some work where it's caught in the game for sure. Rhydon is only available in Victory Road and is entirely outclassed, but doesn't have bad enough stats to go in that category. It hits like a truck. You can teach it Earthquake. It doesn't get a reliable Rock type move, but if you want an Earthquaker for the Elite Four, it'll definitely do some work on a lot of the Pokemon. Its typing isn't bad because there aren't many water and grass types. But again, if you have a Graveler or a Golem, there's no reason to use this thing. You'll have stat values that are higher in it because you've been training it for the majority of the game. Doesn't have as good of a move pool. Has pretty much the same stats, just not quite as good. Fills a role though. Wobbuffet, really not useful for a Nuzlocke. Really not useful for anything but competitive battling. And even then it's questionable. But yeah, Wobbuffet, its niche, its thing is that it gets Counter and Mirror Coat and has a lot of HP, so it'll soak up big damage hits and fire them back. But yeah, Wobbuffet, it's Psychic type, which doesn't bode great. It's not available until really late. Mirror Coat isn't usable against any of Karen's Dark types, and Counter isn't useful against Ghost types, but that really only applies to Gengar. I guess it can. You know what? I'll move it up to Outclass because I guess it can have a use in the Elite Four if you can get it to the level it needs to be. But again, it just isn't really super viable for a Nuzlocke type playthrough. All right. Okay, so the Dratini you get in Gold and Silver. This is a Gold and Silver list, not a Crystal list. It's niche just because of how late you get the Pokemon. It's really only useful if you grind it all the way up. And at that point, like, yeah, you're going to outspeed Lance's Dragonites because they're not as high level as yours, and you're going to outrage them. But again, its stats are super good. It's a pseudo-legendary. If you choose to use it and grind it up, it will be super good in the Elite Four, which is really all you can use it for. It will do a lot of damage on a lot of the Pokemon. However, it's a heavy investment. Doesn't get the extreme speed. Is reliant on like leveling it up super high. But it definitely isn't bad enough to be in the lower tiers. All right, so the roaming legendaries. are an interesting case. So they're almost impossible to catch. I'm saying this because with other Pokemon that are hard to catch, it's like they might be hard to catch, but it's more because of randomness than because of the game's mechanics. The legendary trio, I'm gonna give them their own tier. Oh, whoopsie. Um, ba, 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 ba. Okay, sorry about that. I had a mental lapse. I'm just gonna kind of put them. No, no, not you, Articuno. Dogs. Even though I know they're the legendary beasts. Um, they're roaming legendaries, which means you really only get one chance at them. If you catch them, Suicune especially is fantastic. You can get it right after Burn Tower. It's a super high level and does so much damage. Raikou and Entei are still pretty good just because of their stats and because of their level. Not as good as Suicune, but because they're encountered in such a unique way, I can't really put them in a tier because it's entirely up to luck based on whether or not you get them. And then the two box legendaries are literally godsends. They both have uber amazing stats. They're available for the 8th gym and the Elite Four, I believe. Maybe not the 8th gym. I don't remember. No, I don't think they are available for the 8th gym. I don't know. I don't remember. But either way, they are literally a win for free button for the end of the game. You can Master Ball them, no problem catching them. You can shove them into any of the Elite Four battles, and they're gonna do such good work. I mean, Aeroblast, Sacred Fire, Hydro Pump, Surf, Fly, whatever you want to give these Pokemon for moves, they're going to make them work. Again, Master Ball them. And yeah, you have a free end game if you choose to take advantage. I'll go through why each of these are in the tier that they're in. Actually, no, I don't really need to. So these are all Kanto exclusive, Kanto exclusive, Kanto exclusive, or they're just unavailable in general. Kanto exclusive, all the way down to here, and then these are some Stone evolutions. All these ones, and then Kanto exclusive, all the way, and then these three are Stone evolutions, Moonstone evolutions, which are just as unreliable as the rest of the stones besides the Sunstone. Alright, so, I'll zoom it out, just so that you can see the whole list. Yeah, that fits all of them. So if you want to take a picture of it or whatever, you can do that. But yeah, this is my official gold and silver, not crystal, Nuzlocke viability tier list. If you have any disagreements, feel free to comment. If you have any ideas for tier lists I should do in the future, feel free to comment. Hope you liked the video. And ladies and gentlemen, have a great night.